Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya Karunapurna Sudabdhe Kabalita Ghana Vishwarupa Kiranavalya Arunachala Paramatman Aruno Bhavachitta Kanja Suvikasaya Vande Sri Ramana Rushe Acharyasya Padabjam Yo me darshayadhisham Bhantam Dhwantamatityaha Akhanda Satchidanande Parabrahmanya Laukike Vilasantam Gurum Nomim Sarvada Hridyaham Bhaje. Day by Day with Bhagavan, episode number 23, 8-10-1946. This afternoon, a visitor asked Bhagavan, "No doubt the method taught by Bhagavan is direct, but it is so difficult. We do not know how to begin it. If we go on asking who am I, like a japa with who am I for mantra, it becomes dull. In other methods, there is something preliminary and positive with which one can begin and then go step by step. But in Bhagavan's method, there is no such thing, and to seek the self at once, though direct, is difficult. Bhagavan, you yourself concede it is the direct method. It is the direct and easy method. When going after other things alien to us is so easy, how can it be difficult for one to go to one's own self? You talk of where to begin. There is no beginning and no end. You are yourself the beginning and the end. If you are here and the self somewhere else and you have to reach that self, you may be told how to start, how to travel, and then how to reach. Suppose you who are now in Ramanashramam ask, I want to go to Ramanashramam. How shall I start and how to reach it? What is one to say? A man's search for the self is like that. He is always the self and nothing else. You say, who am I becomes a japa. It is not meant that you should go on asking who am I. In that case, thought will not so easily die. All japas are intended by the use of one thought, the mantra, to exclude all other thoughts. This japa eventually does for a man. All other thoughts except the thought of the mantra gradually die, and then even that one thought dies. Our self is of the nature of japa. Japa is always going on there. If we give up all thoughts, we shall find japa is always there without any effort on our part. In the direct method, as you call it, by saying, ask yourself, who am I? You are told to concentrate within yourself, where the I thought, the root of all other thoughts, arises. As the self is not outside but inside you, you are asked to dive within instead of going without. And what can be more easy than going to yourself? But the fact remains that to some this method will seem difficult and will not appeal. That is why so many different methods have been taught. each of them will appeal to some as the best and easiest. That is according to their pakwa or fitness. But to some, nothing except the Vicharamarga will appeal. They will ask, "You want me to know or to see this or that, but who is the knower, the seer?" Whatever other method may be chosen, there will be always a doer that cannot be escaped. Who is the doer must be found out. Till that, the sadhana cannot be ended. So, eventually, all must come to find out who am I. You complain that there is nothing preliminary or positive to start with. You have the I to start with. You know you exist always, whereas the body does not exist always. For example, in sleep. Sleep reveals that you exist even without a body. We identify the I with a body. We regard the self as having a body and as having limits, and hence all our trouble. All that we have to do is to give up identifying ourselves with the body, with forms and limits, and then we shall know ourselves as the self that we always are. The visitor further asked, "May I believe that there is nothing more to be known now, so far as the technique of sadhana is concerned, than that which has been written in your books from time to time?" This question arises from the fact that in all other systems of sadhana, the Sadguru unfolds some secret technique of meditation to his disciple at the time of initiation or Diksha, as it is called. Bhagavan. There is nothing more to be known than what you find in books. No secret technique. It is all an open secret in this system. Visitor. If even after God realization one has to pay attention to his bodily needs such as hunger, sleep, rest, heat, and cold, of what use is self realization? This state is something which cannot be called completeness. Bhagavan. What will be the state after self realization? Why should you bother about it now? Attain self realization and then see for yourself. But why go to the state of self realization? Even now, are you without self? And are all these things, eating, sleeping, etc., without or apart from the self? Nine, 10, 46. This morning, Nagamma read out her Telugu account of the Jubilee celebrations which appeared in the journal Navodaya. Last evening, a European lady and gentleman arrived here with an introduction to Bhagavan from Mr. D.S. Shastri. About 2:30 p.m. today, the lady came and sat in the hall along with other ladies and had her legs stretched out in front of her and opposite Bhagavan. TSR went to her and quietly told her that it was not quite good form here to sit like that before Bhagavan, and she folded her legs. Bhagavan was greatly annoyed at this and rebuked TSR, saying, "Why this mischief, Cheshtai? It is difficult for them to squat at all on the floor like us. Why should you make it more difficult by imposing further restrictions?" After saying this, Bhagavan added, "Now my conscience pricks me that I am having my legs stretched out in front of all. So saying, he drew in his legs, folded them, and kept on like that till 4:45, when he rose as usual. 10:46. This morning, after his usual stroll, Bhagavan arrived in the hall about 7:35 and sitting on the couch stretched out his legs. But immediately he drew them back and folded them, saying, I am forgetting, recounted yesterday's incident, and ended, My conscience pricks me. I cannot keep my legs stretched out in front of all. Still, he kept his legs folded. In the afternoon, too, he had not forgotten this and was trying to keep to this new resolve of his. But before the evening, he relaxed a bit as all of us entreated him that it should be given up. This afternoon, Mr. Subbarao said that some incidents in Bhagavan's life had not at all been recorded in any book so far. For instance, he said, nobody knew that Bhagavan was for some time nude, but he found out by reading Bhagavan's horoscope that he must have been nude for some time. It was then discovered in the Telugu biography the above fact about Bhagavan was mentioned. This led Bhagavan to say, It is true I was nude for some time in the early days when I was under the Illupai tree in the temple compound. It was not because I had a Vairagya that I should have no clothing of any sort. The cod piece I was wearing used to bring on sores where it touched the skin. When the sore became bad, I threw away the cod piece. That is all. There used to be an old Gurukul who, for the first time, arranged for some regular food for me, either by supplying some from his house or by sending the Abhisheka milk from the temple to me. After I had been nude for about a month, this old Gurukul told me one day, Boy, the Kartigai Deepam is approaching. People from all the 24 districts will be flocking here. Police from all the districts will also be here. They will arrest you and put you into jail if you are nude like this. So you must have a cod piece. So saying, he got a new piece of cloth, made 4 people lift me up, and tied a cod piece round me. Bhagavan also related today that on the morning of the day after his arrival, he had his first meal at Tiruvannamalai. Apparently, he ate nothing at all on the first day. He said, The next day I was walking up and down in the 16-pillared mandapam in front of the temple. Then a Mauni Swami who used to be living in the old days in the Kambattu Ilayanar temple came there from the temple. Another Palani Swami, a well-built man with long matted hair who used to do a lot of service by clearing and cleaning the temple precincts with the help of a band of sannyasis, also came to the 16-pillared mandapam from the town. Then the Mauni, looking at me, a stranger here, being in a hungry and exhausted condition, made signs to the above Palaniswami that I should be given some food. Thereupon, the above Palaniswami went and brought some cold rice in a tin vessel which was all black with a little salt strewn on top of the rice. That was the first bhiksha which Arunachaleshwara gave me. 11:10:46. This afternoon, I made Nagamma read out to us all in the hall her account of what Bhagavan had said in reply to Professor D. S. Sharma's questions on 4/10/46. Mr. Sharma had also sent an account himself of his talk with Bhagavan. We had that also read out. On comparison, I found that what I had already recorded in these pages needed few alterations. Nagamma has recorded all that took place then, including questions which others besides Mr. Sharma put and the answers Bhagavan gave them. In this connection, Bhagavan recollected that he had, in answering Sharma, quoted Abhyasakale Sahajam Stithim Prahurupashanam. Ramana Gita. What is Sahaja state is known as Upasana during practice. Bhagavan again repeated much of what he told Professor Sharma and said, what is obvious, self-evident and most immediate to us, the self, we say we are not able to see. On the other hand, we say that what we see with these eyes alone is pratyaksha, direct perception. There must first be the seer before anything could be seen. You are yourself the eye that sees, yet you say you don't know the eye that sees, but know only the things seen. But for the self, the infinite eye, Antamilakkan, referred to in the stanza in Ulladu Narpadu, reality in 40 verses, what can be seen? You want Sakshatkaram. You are now doing karam of all these things, that is, realizing these things, regarding as real all these things, making real what is not real. If this karam is given up out of your present sakshatkaram of the unreal, then what will remain is that which is real or sakshat. This evening, the Polish lady Uma Devi arrived with a party of 25 Polish people, mostly girls, from the Kolhapur state, where there is a refugee camp of about 5,000 Poles. 12/10/46. This afternoon, the Polish party entertained Bhagavan with their folk songs and folk dances. 14/10/46. This morning I told Bhagavan, last night, as desired by Uma Devi, I took some of the Polish party round the hill and on the way explained to them the tradition about the hill and the various gods of our religion. They said, how many gods? How can there be so many gods? Though I explained to them that the same God is worshipped in various aspects, etc., they said they could not understand it all. Thereupon, Bhagavan suggested that they should peruse the book All is One, which had been translated into English, and asked me to find out if typed copies of the English translation were available for being given to them. I brought 3 copies from the Mauni. Bhagavan gave one to Uma Devi, one to the girls of the party, and had the third in his hands. Meanwhile, Mr. T.K.S. came there and asked for the third copy, and Bhagavan gave it to him. Uma Devi said that she had finished her Polish translation of the Gita and that only her introduction and Sir Radhakrishnan's foreword had to be written before the book could be sent to the press. 15/10/46. This morning, the Polish party left. This evening, Dr. B. K. Roy, who has been staying in Ramana Nagar for about a month or more and visiting the ashramam, told Bhagavan that, as desired, he had gone through Zimmer's book and found that the translation the ashramam had already of a portion of the book was quite good and that he could not improve it, and that the rest of the book contained nothing original of Zimmer but was only a translation of Bhagavan's works. This Dr. Roy seems to be a Bengali writer, well read in English and other languages. He is a doctor of philosophy who has stayed long in Germany, Switzerland, and other places. 16-10-46. This night, the above Dr. Roy took leave of Bhagavan, saying he was leaving the following morning. Mrs. Thalayar Khan also told Bhagavan that one Miss Bowman, a Swiss lady who has been here for the last 3 days, would be leaving tomorrow, and Miss B made her namaskarams and left. This Miss B, it seems, has been in India for about 8 years at the head of the Baroda Palace staff of servants. It seems she does not believe in God but believes in social service. She has come here having heard of Bhagavan from Mrs. T when the Maharani of Baroda was staying at Ooty last summer and Miss B was in the Rani's party. Before coming here, she wrote to Mrs. T, "I am coming to see your God and hope I can make him mine too," or words to that effect. This night, another Dr. Roy, a blind gentleman, arrived here from Sri Aurobindo Ashram, where it seems Dilip Kumar Roy advised him to come here. It seems he went blind in his 7th year but has managed, in spite of it, to educate himself so well that till recently he was a lecturer in Calcutta University and is now a lecturer in the Tata Sociological Institute at Bombay. He has married an American wife, and from the picture he has been kind enough to show me and some others here, she is a beautiful woman. He is a very remarkable person. He has travelled all alone from Bombay now. But this is nothing. He has travelled to America, Japan, and other places all alone. When we complimented him on all he has been able to achieve, he says it is nothing compared to what Helen Keller, who lost all her senses at 18 months, has been able to achieve for herself. This gentleman had a private talk with Bhagavan after 8 p.m. today when he narrated his eye trouble and prayed for Bhagavan's mercy. 17-10-1946. This morning, Dr. Roy showed before Bhagavan how he writes, reads his watch, etc. I have learnt he is a M.A. BL of Calcutta University and afterwards became a PhD of an American university. In the afternoon, when I entered the hall about 3 p.m., Dr. Roy was asking Bhagavan, in the case of persons who are not capable of long meditation, will it not be enough if they engage themselves in doing good to others? Bhagavan replied, yes, it will do. The idea of good will be at their heart. That is enough. Good, God, love are all the same thing. If the person keeps continuously thinking of any one of these, it will be enough. All meditation is for the purpose of keeping out all other thoughts. After some pause, Bhagavan said, When one realizes the truth and knows that there is neither the seer nor the seen, but only the self that transcends both, that the self alone is the screen or the substratum on which the shadow both of the ego and all that it sees come and go, the feeling that one has not got eyesight and that therefore one misses the sight of various things will vanish. The realized being, though he has normal eyesight, does not see all these things. In brackets, he sees only the self and nothing but the self. After further discussion with Dr. Roy, Bhagavan added, there is nothing wrong in seeing anything, this body or the world. The mistake lies in thinking you are the body. There is no harm in thinking the body is in you. The body, world, all must be in the self, or rather, nothing can exist apart from the self, as no pictures can be seen without the screen on which the shadows can be cast. In answer to a question as to what is the best way to the goal, Bhagavan said, there is no goal to be reached. There is nothing to be attained. You are the self. You exist always. Nothing more can be predicated of the self than that it exists. Seeing God or the self is only being the self or yourself. Seeing is being. You, being the self, want to know how to attain the self. It is something like a man being at Ramanashramam asking how many ways are there to reach Ramanashramam and which is the best way for him. All that is required of you is to give up the thought that you are this body and to give up all thoughts of the external things or the not self. As often as the mind goes out towards outward objects, prevent it and fix it in the self or I. That is all the effort required on your part. The different methods prescribed by different thinkers are all agreed on this. The Advaita, Dvaita, Visishtadvaita schools and other schools all agree that the mind must give up thinking of external things and must think of the self or God as they may call it. That is called meditation. But meditation being our nature, you will find when you realize the self that what was once the means is now the goal. That while once you had to make an effort, now you cannot get away from the self even if you want. 18-10-46. This afternoon, a visitor from Shimoga asked Bhagavan how to still the tossing mind. Bhagavan replied, who asks this question? Is it the mind or you? The visitor said, the mind. Bhagavan, if you see what the mind is, it will be stilled. Visitor, how to see what the mind is? Bhagavan, what is your idea of the mind? Visitor, my idea is it is thought. Bhagavan, the mind is a bundle of thoughts, but the source of all thoughts is the I thought. So, if you try to find out who this I is, the mind will disappear. The mind will exist only so long as you think of external things. But when you draw it from external things and make it think of the mind or I, in other words, introvert it, it ceases to exist. 25-10-46. For the last 3 or 4 days, Mr. Subbarao has been reading out in the hall his Life of Bhagavan in Telugu. He has mentioned various new things in this book. One is that the mongoose which came to Bhagavan when he was on the hill was golden colored. S also says that Nayana had told him that the mongoose was none other than God Arunachala come to see Bhagavan. Another thing I have not recorded before is found in this life by S. It seems Nayana used to say that dogs cannot long survive contact with a person like Bhagavan whose Granthi, knot, has been sundered, and that he used to drive away all dogs. In this connection, Bhagavan said, yes, he used to drive the dogs away. But there was an exception. It was a dog we used to call Neela. She used to come and always sit on my lap. But she would not allow any other dog, even her own mother or sisters and brothers, to pass beyond the gate of the Skandashramam. Nayana used to say, this has been born a dog by mistake. S has also recorded that whatever Nayana said always came true and cited an event in his own life to prove this. 26-10-46. The morning Tapal had brought a letter signed Kannan. Bhagavan read the letter but was not sure who wrote it. In the afternoon, he sent for the cover in which it came and from various facts made sure the writer was Mr. Krishnamurti of Madhura College, son of Mr. Ranganatha Iyer. At Bhagavan's suggestion, Vishwanath added to a letter that was being sent today to Mr. Ranganatha Iyer, tell Mr. Krishnamurti that the Kannan who escaped detection this morning when the tapals were read was discovered this evening and brought into publicity. The following is the English translation of Kannan's letter as made by Mr. TPR and myself the next day. O Emperor Supreme Ramana, who rules the world under the canopy of universal sovereignty, seated on the throne of the heart, that day you graciously said, O child, you being our beloved son, we bestow kingship on you. Assuming this sovereignty, be you happy. I am seated in the audience hall. There have gathered the Prime Minister, mind, the assistant ministers, namely the 5 sense organs, and the heads of executive authority, namely 5 organs of action. Before me, they are making noise as they please. They daringly defy my authority. Often and suddenly they darken the audience hall. If I say, enough, leave me alone, all of you, and get away, they are indulging in obstructive tactics and say that they will not go. I am having endless trouble. Enough for me, this kingship devoid of power. I have surrendered this kingship unto the lotus feet of Ramana, who is my father and master. Bhagavan should release me and give his gracious protection, or else teach me the secret of sovereignty, granting the necessary power. O King, refuge, refuge, refuge I crave. Kannan. You gave me refuge, saying, child, when the bell of extraversion rings, the assembly will gather. In the audience hall, be ever raising the incense of vichara or enquiry. Mind, the minister is a drunkard, confusing himself with the intoxication of thought, he will keep confusing the assembly as well. This incense of vichara will clear the intoxication of thought. The assembly will function in order. As this incense of vichara increases more and more, those assembled will take leave. When the bell of abidance rings, mind will finally disappear. All that incense of vichara transformed into light, you will abide as yourself, alone and blessed. Therefore, you should not give up even for a moment this self inquiry of who am I. With the progressive increase of vichara, Jagrat and Swapna will merge in Sahaja Nirvikalpa Samadhi. All sleep will become Kevala Nirvikalpa Samadhi. The vichara will merge in Swarupa. Prayer. Ramana, my father and mother, you gave me the sword of Jnana termed Vichara. Grant to this humble self that has sought refuge at your feet the necessary desirelessness to lay low and destroy the demon of thought as and when it arises with determination and without any pity or compassion. Lord, I surrender myself. Kannan. Mr. Tyagaraja Iyer, official reservoir of Madras, who was in the hall, asked Bhagavan, is this all imagination, the creation of the writer's fancy, or real? Bhagavan replied, we don't know. How can we say anything? Next, Bhagavan asked me to read out an article entitled Ramana's Grace, which was not in the first edition of the souvenir volume but has been included in the second edition, which arrived here yesterday or so. I read it out accordingly. There, the writer mentions how Bhagavan's grace made him have direct realization and experience of the self or the awareness of I in Bhagavan's hall for some little time and describes it vividly and in detail. After I finished reading the article, Bhagavan remarked in answer to Mr. T. Iyer's original question, now, what are we to say about this? Was it all real or fancy? In the evening, after Parayana, Alamelu Ammal got up and told Bhagavan that she was present at Seshadri Swami's Samadhi this morning when the following incident took place. She said, the party from Coimbatore, including the man who says Seshadri Swami is speaking and writing through him on a planchette, came to the Samadhi and found the place locked. They went round the Samadhi shrine 3 times, and meanwhile Thiruvengadam Pillai, the retired police constable who is in charge of the shrine, came and opened the temple. Then the Coimbatore party proceeded to say that Seshadri Swami was writing on the planchette, which also they had brought with them. There was some writing produced by the planchette, but T. Pillai asked the party, now tell me what S. Swami told me one day soon after he had a shave and was sitting on the pile of Gurukal's house. The party gave some answer. Mr. T put another question, which was also answered. Thereupon, T remarked both the answers were wrong and that there was no necessity to ask further questions and that he could not believe S. Swami was speaking through them. The party then broke up in disorder. Bhagavan and the ashramam had been already informed of the intended visit of this Coimbatore party. The party, in fact, wanted to have our ashramam as their headquarters and carry on their activities from this center. But the ashramam had declined to allow any such thing. When originally Bhagavan heard from this party that S. Swami was speaking through them, he humorously remarked, "It seems S. Swami is speaking to them. He was well known to us and moved with us all closely. It is a pity he does not come and speak to us." 29/10/46. This morning, a letter was received by Bhagavan from Mrs. Noe, Betty, and Mr. K. K. Nambiar, in which Mrs. Noe expressed joy and gratitude for KKN having met her and Betty at the suggestion of the ashramam, and described how she felt as if Bhagavan was present with her. About 2:30 p.m., when I went near Bhagavan's hall, TPR was outside at the entrance and told me Bhagavan was being given hot fomentation for some pain on his right hip, and that therefore people were not allowed to go in just then. So I waited and went in along with others at about 2:55 p.m. Bhagavan felt that he had caused great inconvenience to the devotees by his attendees having kept visitors out for a few minutes, and he remarked, "All these people were kept waiting for half an hour." Bhagavan occasionally gets these pains. Today it was obvious the pain was severe, but he made light of it and would not allow anyone else to be done for it. He himself took some liniment and was occasionally rubbing it on his right hip. Seeing this, I suggested to friends that we could all clear out of the hall and leave Bhagavan to lie down if he felt like that. But Bhagavan would not allow it. A little later, Dr. Anantanarayana Rao came into the hall and he offered to massage the part and give some relief. Bhagavan, however, would not have it and humorously remarked, "It is enough the matter has reached your ears. Your hands need not be employed. I am already feeling better." This was in reference to our common belief that if we have any trouble, it is enough if our complaint reaches Bhagavan's ears. Bhagavan continued to have this pain at intervals till we left the hall at 7:30 p.m. Alamelu Ammal reported to Bhagavan that the Coimbatore party told her various people spoke to them through the planchette, including our Bhagavan, and that one Kolandai Swami of Madura, deceased, spoke through the planchette and wrote a song on Bhagavan. So saying, she produced the song and Bhagavan perused it and gave it to TSR, saying, "You are the custodian of these songs. Do what you like with this." Bhagavan remarked, "These siddhis won't come to us. No Swami comes and speak to us." When Alamelu Ammal said the party claimed that Bhagavan also spoke through their planchette, Bhagavan said, "Ah, is it so?" Bhagavan showed Muruganar a cutting from some Tamil paper in which an account had been given of the celebration of Golden Jubilee at Golden Rock on 1/10/46 instead of 1/9/46, owing to the South Indian Railway strike. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Sarvam Sri Ramanarpanamastu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.